Thank you,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Captain.
Chairman, and I want to thank all of you. I really, Mr. Faber mentioned 5 years ago, we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and this has impacts in all of our states. And we had an issue with our DOD in West Virginia, so I empathize with that. Anyway, I would like to note that we received letters from 250 entities requesting that Congress provide some passive receiver exemptions under CERCLA. They're like drinking water and wastewater, ag groups, state and local governments, airports, and others. So I would ask unanimous consent to submit those letters for the record.
Without objection.
Good, thank you. Let's talk about, I think one of the cruxes this enforcement discretion point. The EPA says enforcement discretion to protect water and wastewater, and that their intent is to focus on the polluter pays and the producers and the users. So, Mr. Witt, you have direct experience with this through the Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission during the Dioxin Superfund litigation. Could you speak about your experience, and you did speak a little bit about this in your opening statement, how successful or unsuccessful the EPA's policy in protecting your utility from financial and legal challenges related to the cleanup of the site? So how does it work if that's what their aim is?
Thank you for the question, Senator. It hasn't worked because, as has been pointed out, and Mr. Fox is certainly more of a legal expert on CERCLA than I am, but it hasn't worked because, as was pointed out, even if EPA doesn't sue you, everybody else involved in a Superfund case can sue you. And so in PVSC's case, again, we don't make dioxin, we don't profit from it, we don't use it, and yet for the last 8 years, since 2016, by having been drawn into this lawsuit, PVSC has had to expend over $4.6 million in legal fees defending this case against a contaminant that is not our responsibility, that we didn't put into the river, we didn't make it, we don't use it. But nevertheless, we are force-marched through this lawsuit. 40 other public entities are being force-marched through lawsuits related to the Diamond Alkali site by the parties who are liable for putting this, again, most toxic chemical that human beings know how to make that's not radioactive into the environment. And there's no way to get us out except by settling with us directly. And that is what EPA is trying to do, but it doesn't stop you from being involved in the lawsuit. And that's what the same exemption we're asking for under PFAS.
Right.
We're trying to be part of the solution here. We're not part of the problem.
Well, the good news is I think that what I hear the panel saying is we are at the precipice. We are so much closer at addressing this issue from our standpoint. And if we can get the drinking, let's talk about the drinking water standard. Let's just say you're a small water system in Mr. Fox, this is for you, in West Virginia. Let's say you have a certain level that you have to, that you can't pass through. And we have the technology and the carbon filters that, so they purchase those, which are several $100,000s for a small water system. They catch it, and hopefully all of it, but there might be some that could get through. We know that's always a possibility. I guess what disproportionate problems would they have at a small water system because they can't bear the brunt of it? But then the other question is, and we've learned this through our investigations, is how do you destroy it? And how do you, once you catch it, what do you do with it? That's a big issue that in our bill that we've looked at is to try to award, prizes to people that can figure out how to do this. If you burn it, does it go back up in the air and people are breathing it and all these kinds of issues? So, Mr. Fox.
So thank you for the question, and I think you're raising a really important point in two ways. First of all, municipal solid waste landfills are not going to take that material if they don't have passive receiver protection because it will incur liability for them. So that granulated activated carbon filtration systems will not have a place to go. They will have to go to hazardous waste landfills or hazardous waste incinerators if they will accept it. Order of magnitude more expensive for these small water authorities or wastewater treatment plants, talking about 5-8 times more expensive, not including the transportation costs. And so it will have an incredibly disproportionately negative effect on those industries because they will have no place to send them. I will say that they may not even be able to dispose of them in the hazardous waste incinerators and landfills because they may not be compatible with those facilities.
Yeah, that's a big issue. So, we're talking a lot of technicalities here, and I think what we're bypassing a little bit, not because we want to, but because we're trying to get to the right things, are how safe is this in our water? Is there a level? How important, and I'm just going to go really quickly, I know I'm almost at my time. Secretary, we'll just go through quickly. What will the safe drinking water standard mean in this discussion? In other words, how important is that, and how quickly should that have been done, like I think yesterday, but that's my opinion. Really quick while we...
Yeah, Senator, I agree. It should have been done yesterday. We're looking forward to coming out, but how important is that? Is it'll set a North Star by which utilities will have to, anyone discharging, or I should say treating for drinking water will have to meet that standard.
Mm-hmm.
It'll require some technology to be invested. But that's not a bad thing here, is that once we have a standard, that is usually what spurs the innovation to create the technology. So I'll keep it brief and
Okay.
hold it there.
Ms. Bowers, do you have anything to add there?
Yes, thank you, Senator. I would just add that if EPA finalizes that drinking water standard under the Safe Drinking Water Act, that standard could potentially be incorporated as a standard for cleanup under CERCLA.
Okay.
That determination is a site-specific one, again, but the statute does have room for...
So that might beg the question is, do you go to the CERCLA thing before you have the safe standard? But I'll move on to Mr. Faber really quick.
Yeah, just a reminder, Senator, that even if the president finalizes the drinking water standard today, utilities will have 3 to 5 years to get into compliance. I think Mr. Fox's point's an important one, that while utilities should not be sending their GAC filters to Subtitle D landfills, they can and should send them to Subtitle C hazardous waste landfills. Indeed, they should have been. This is one of the things that I find troubling about.
Well, I want to stick on the water standard. Sure. Sorry about that. Yeah, because I'm out of my time. Okay. Mr. Witt, do you have a comment on safe drinking water? How that might impact you?
Again, I concur with the panel that it's an important step forward.
Microphone.
I agree with the panel that it's certainly an important step forward and needs to happen. Again, it's a matter of putting the right regulation in place at the right time, though.
And what comes first? Yes, Mr.
Right.
Fox.
Yeah, that's really what I was going to say. It's a sequencing issue
Right.
that it has to be regulated under those other statutes first before
Before it
CERCLA.
goes to CERCLA. Thank you.
Thanks for those questions.
Yeah, I really just had a comment, and thanks. I don't know if Senator Whitehouse gave me a few minutes, but thank you, Senator Whitehouse, for that.
Yes, he did.
Thank you, Senator Carper. I've been listening to this. I want everybody to know who's here testifying and our members to know that this is a public forum to get into sort of the nitty-gritty of what we've been trying to work on in private by getting stakeholders from every single aspect of this issue. We've had, to the chairman's credit, we've had 2 very major roundtables and to understand the issue as well as we possibly can. So now we're honing in on it. And so I guess my final comment would be, I think it was agreement that third-party or passive receivers are not what we're aiming at here. We're aiming at the polluter pays. The polluter should pay the cleanup and pay the cleanup. The third parties, because of past 11 exemptions in CERCLA, or because of what Mr. Witt just mentioned in the statute of CERCLA, don't feel like the EPA writing a letter of enforcement discretion or mentioning enforcement discretion, and of course that only lasts as long as that EPA lasts, I would imagine, provides that bright line, I guess I would use that term. And so Mr. Faber has said that this, that it will be written into the verbiage that third-party, water systems and wastewater systems and landfills are not to be, not where we're aiming here, not to be held liable. If we all agree on that, why wouldn't we just agree on putting it in the statute and making it a bright line and making it very clear? So it's not a question, Mr. Faber. But anyway, that would be my parting thought, because we have a lot of agreement on a lot of this, and I think the more explicit, I'm not an attorney, but the more explicit we can make this, I think the better it is, so that Amara and others that have been affected by this will have the peace of mind that the greatest protections are being offered to her and her family for the clean water that they drink. So thank you, Mr.
Thank you for those